Alright, so welcome back. This is my second video about the creature cube. Today we are looking at the ally colors and using them to choose some creature types. Now I know I originally said we'll be doing all the colors or color combinations in a previous video. However, I realized that's just such a big concept that I need to split it into two different videos. So today we're starting with the allied colors. Our goal here is to make a 360 card cube in honor of Lorwyn Eclipsed. We're going back to a very creature type focused plane, so I want to make a cube based on creature types. So far we've gotten about 23 cards of our 360 card goal, and they've all been focusing previously on changelings. So let's see where we go from here. So how we'll do this, we're looking at choosing our color pairs and using them to determine our creature type. Now, we don't want to define ourselves only in this creature type. We don't want to define our creature type only by these colors. So we want to have some broader cards. But basically, we are looking for gold and hybrid cards to get us a start in what color pair is what type, and then we'll look at some key cards from each one. Starting off with white-blue, originally I wanted spirits. This seems like a good traditional card color or card combo. However, I realized there's very little overlap with some other creature types. So instead, I've decided to focus on birds. So here we have two pseudo-lords, Watcher of the Spheres and Empyrean Eagle. I say pseudo-lords because a typical lord only cares about that creature type. These care more about creatures with flying. So not true lords. And we've also got some token makers. Okay, moving on to some more cards. We're looking at more token makers. Celera Songbirds and Falconer Adept are creatures that add a bird as they enter. Rise of the Eagles. It's an it's a sorcery that gives us 2 bird enchantment creatures. They are a little stronger at 2/2, and it gives us Scry. So these are some of the cards we're looking for. And then we have our first type changing card with Raven Wings. So when it enters and equips, it actually adds a creature type to one of our cards. And this is something that's also going to give us a little bit more flexibility. So yes, we could put on our Cellar of Songbirds, turning it into a bird in addition to the bird that it enters with. So these are some things we're looking for here. Typically, though, these are going to be smaller creatures. We have some here that grow with time. Cloudfin Raptor gets bigger as you have more creatures. Avon Squire, although temporary, does get bigger due to Exalted. And then we have some repeated value with Healer's Hawk and Thieving Magpie. Blue-black, this is traditionally fairies, especially if you look at original Lorwyn set. However, I didn't want to go with that. Instead, I decided to go with zombies, inspired heavily by Innistrad. So here we have some just general good value. Vidalcan Ghoul, anytime it blocks, your opponent loses 4 life, so there's going to be a bit of a trade-off. Do you block it, stopping the 1 and taking the 4, or do you just let it through? We want to give our opponent some decisions. And then we have some other cards that just have good generic value. Chancellor allows us to make more zombies. Tomebound Lich allows us to draw and discard. And finally, this is our true lord for zombies, the Diregraph Captain. I say it's a true lord because it gives only zombies benefits. This is going to be a much more graveyard focused deck, either filling it or pulling from it. Dreadslaver, Haunted Dead all want to pull from the graveyard in ways, whereas Lurching Rot Beast wants to enter or has benefits for entering. And then, of course, Festering Goblin it cares if it dies, which is something that, again, goes into our graveyard. This is a bit more of a pull from it, with Stitchwing Scab caring about returning, whereas Forgotten Creation adds to it. Stitch Mangler is some decent control, and Compelling Deterrence is fun because it's not a zombie, but it has a benefit for carrying, or it has a benefit if you have a zombie. And we do want to add these into it for flexibility, but also encouraging, this one card is better with a zombie. If I can get one zombie even in my deck, it's better. And that's going to help with the cross-pollination overlapping archetypes. Black-red, this is a very aggro color. Originally wanted Minotaurs. They have some fun lords, but they do not have a lot of overlap. So instead, we're going back to Innistrad. We chose vampires. This is classic. Very small, very aggro creatures. A whole bunch of benefits for doing damage, be it getting stronger, putting +1/+1 counters, or just having more life gain. We also have our Lord here with the Stormkirk Captain. Again, another true Lord benefiting only vampires. In black, we have a bit more of this transforming mechanic, right? In lore, other media, vampires can change other creatures. So this happens with Captivating Vampire and Chosen Markov turning into vampires. Indulgent Aristocrat and Vampire Nighthawk, they give us some more of that life link and life gain aggro. In red, again, we still have some more aggressive cards. Bold Impaler and Sanguinary Mage, cheap, that can get stronger. And we do have some cards now that care about other creature types. Neonate's Rush is an okay card on its own. Bit of removal, bit of damage, draws a card, not terrible. Cares if you have a vampire. Okay, so it gets a little cheaper. Night Revelers also cares about humans. And unfortunately, no matter how you look at it, in any kind of tribal deck or creature type deck, humans are going to show up in some way. Red-green, originally I wanted dinosaurs, looking at the Ixalan sets. However, they don't have a lot of overlap themselves. Their overlap comes from their non-dinosaur cards, and I wasn't too much of a fan of that. So instead, I wanted to go with giants. This is something similar to the original Lorwyn sets, however, they were typically red-white, but we know it's going to be a slower set, or slower archetype, because the giants are typically bigger. So things like Rampart Smasher, Scab Clan Giant, and Valley Maker are pretty big. We then have Giant Baiting. This gives us temporary tokens. Now, you can see from the others, it is actually cheaper at 3 mana. However, to get the most benefit of it, we want to wait till we have more cards, because we can use that Conspire. So again, it's going to be a little slower. We have some good support cards here that reward us for having larger giants. Crush Underfoot is a good removal spell, or Stink Drinker Devil, who we've seen a few times now, just makes our bigger giants cheaper, which is great synergy. Okay, we also have ways to make other creatures more aggressive, or our creatures more aggressive in general. Titan of Eternal Fire gives all our humans a way to ping for damage, and Bloodfray Giant is just an aggressive card that can get bigger. In green, again, we have another way to change creature type with Tall as a Giant. Then we have some bigger cards that will grow with time, Arbor Colossus and Beanstalk Giant. And Turn Timber Ascetic is going to buy us some more time, gaining 3 life. So you have a big creature that gives us life, allows us to continue the game a little longer, especially against those more aggressive decks. Green-white, this is one that I was really hoping to put Centaurs in. I like the idea, and they have a bit more of an overlap. However, there's just surprisingly few Centaurs. Instead, we're going with cats. This is going to be a more wide general archetype, where rather than focusing in on some super key aggro, we are looking at cards that just have good synergy with each other, or general good cards, right? So things like Civil Servant can get better if we have a Citizen. Even if we don't have too many others, those changelings that we talked about earlier will count. Giving creatures with Vigilance, tap abilities is great. And then some more just general utility with our 2 Kasali cards. And tribal synergies for cats have been coming up more and more, especially in Foundations. So for our white cats, they're a lot more +1/+1 counter and life gain related. We also do have our Lord for the for the cat archetype with King of the Pride. And green, they're typically more utility creatures, right? Enter abilities with Wary Thespian and Jewel Thief, whereas Malamet Brawler and Keeper of Fables are more on the aggressive, with Keeper of Fables actually probably being highly valued outside of just cats because it cares about non-humans. Alright, so far we now have 83 cards. We looked at 60 cards today of our 360 card goal, which is not bad. We're getting there. Next time we're going to start choosing creature types from the enemy colors, and hopefully you've probably seen where we can start to have some overlap in archetypes. Alright, so thanks for watching.